Hi, welcome back to another video.
Candles make an excellent spooky decoration. And there are a lot of videos out there that show how you can make your own candles out of things like PVC pipe. Well, I want to go a little bit further than that and also make a stand for the candles. As an extra challenge, I'm going to try to do this with just stuff that I already have lying around the house. So let's start out by cutting a couple of wooden circles. One of these is 10 inches, the other one's 8 inches. I'm going to use a hole saw and just cut it's about a 1-inch hole in the middle of both pieces. I'm going to be using a skull along with this, so we're going to drill a hole right through the skull as well, because our central candle is going to be made out of a 3/4 inch PVC pipe. You can see here that the pipe can fit right through the skull, and it fits in the holes in the wood. This will all make sense as we start to assemble it together. Now, I don't have a ton of wide PVC, so I grabbed a piece of cardboard tube as well, using my multi-saw here, my multi-tool, to just cut out some gaps. This is because I want it to sit close to the skull, and they're going to kind of hug over the top of the skull. And I'm just eyeballing all of this. And this pipe is an ABS pipe. And here we've got a regular PVC pipe. Of course, for all of this, make sure you're wearing respiration as you're sanding it, because you don't want to be breathing the dust from any of this. We're going to make the tops a little bit uneven. And here are my 3 big candles. Now there's some writing on the ABS and the PVC that comes from the factory. We want to go ahead and remove that. So I'm just going to use acetone. It comes right off of the PVC. Just rub it right off. And it also comes off of the ABS, but you got to be a little bit careful or a little more gentle, because it actually dissolves the ABS as well. And we're going to start by priming all of these pieces, but to prepare the cardboard, I'm going to hit it with a spray varnish first. This is just a matte surface to try to help it take the paint better. And then I'm just going to use some gray primer. And we'll prime all of the pieces. Because I'm making this all up as I go, the order of things is a little bit weird. While that was drying, I just cut a few circles here. These will fit inside the big candles. And then I coated both wood discs with a black base paint, just spray painted it. I happen to have several of these skeletons. They're about 15 or 18 inches tall. They're posable. And I think we're going to use them in making the base. So this gray pipe, it will be that middle candle that we looked at earlier. I'm going to glue this down into the base circle. I'm using these 1, 2, 3 blocks to make sure that it's square. A little bit of hot glue around the bottom. And we're going to have these skeletons sitting around this. Now the position of their feet changes over time, you'll see. I start with the idea that their heels would be glued up against the outer edge of the circle. Later on, I'm going to end up moving the feet right up onto it, because the heel contact didn't give enough of a connection. So with some hot glue, you just kind of glue their heads and their rear ends to the bottom. I turned their skulls a little bit so they didn't look manufactured. So they're kind of looking different directions. And you'll see this is how the top will fit on top of it. And that's roughly the shape of our base. Now we want the base to look like it's made out of like wrought iron, so we're going to start by spray painting everything with a base of black. Now you can see how I had originally planned to glue the heels onto the outer edge of the base. That's what I'm doing here. It works initially, but the slightest bump disconnects them, so I end up changing that later. And now I'm just roughly posing the hands. They're going to be pressed up against the top. And here we will glue the top down to the heads of the skulls, and now each palm we're pushing up into the bottom. And that's the shape of our new base. To make this all look like wrought iron, I'm going to use a technique that I learned from Van Oaks Props YouTube channel. I'll put a link to his video down below. But it's essentially using shellac and powdered graphite. You mix it all together till it's thick, and then you can just kind of paint it on. And as it dries, which it does very quickly, you can kind of dab it and give it some dimension. You get a little bit of bumpiness. And then as you sand over it later, you will expose the shiny graphite underneath. Now, this worked really well on this project, but I did decide ultimately that there wasn't quite enough contrast in it, and so I end up doing some dry brush. But I do that very last. You can see here, as it's dried, it's got a nice bumpy feel. A lot of texture. It's really interesting. And now, as I sand over it, it starts to expose just the tops of every one of those little bumps, and you get a little bit of shininess. And so it looks like metal or wrought iron. Even though this project is being made with stuff that I already have laying around, I do have some affiliate links down in the description if you are interested in finding some of the same stuff. And now we're going to start to assemble it. And this is another situation where we see that I kind of run into the problem of order of operations. So I'm going to position each of the candles here that are all primed. And we're going to hot glue them onto the skull, but not to the base. And I did that intentionally so that I could kind of treat them all separately without affecting the base, which has basically already been painted. You see it all comes off in one piece. This was great, mostly. Off camera, I sprayed the whole thing with an off-white base color. But then I realized that I need that center candle. I need to have a little space there. So with my heat gun, I end up pulling it apart. The reason for this will make sense in a minute. So let's go ahead and start painting the skull. And I have a video that I've done about realistic painting of skulls, and I'm using the same techniques. There should be a link up in the top corner of your screen to that. I'm just doing washes. This is burnt umber, and I'm just painting a wet wash of it on and then rubbing that off with a paper towel. And then I mix a little bit of black in with my burnt umber. I never go to full black. It's always shades of brown. To add a little bit of interest, I'm now using some yellow ochre, just in a few select places. Dab that off, and we get a realistic feel. I do finish up with a very dark brown just in the detail areas. And now we've got a realistic looking skull. And now we get to see why I had to take that middle candle off. We're going to do the final assembly, and I need to put a screw in the top of the middle candle. So I drilled a little pilot hole and then screwed that in just far enough that it crosses through the center of it. I made a mess as I was painting the skull, so I'm just touching up the white base coat on the candles that are already there, and also painting that middle candle. Now we'll take those discs that I cut out before and a pool noodle. The color of this doesn't matter. We're never going to see this. This is just going inside the candle to kind of hold up these discs. Like that, a little pedestal. And I even took just chunks of that foam for the skinnier ones. With some hot glue, we'll just mount that inside the candle. and then glue the disc inside, and now you see we've got a little platform in the top. No longer have a hollow tube. Now we'll replace that middle candle that I had to take off before, and it's time to start adding the fake wax strips, and we're doing this using hot glue. I'm just running beads of glue from the bottom to the top, and you let them dry, and then you add more, and as you do that, it starts to build up a really cool effect. With very hot glue, I can put it across the top and just let gravity drip it down. Now the glue is clear, but I need it to be white, so after masking off the skull and the base, I use the same base coat paint and dust it over the wax drips. Because the hot glue is translucent and I didn't fully cover all of it, you get a cool waxy feel. But at the base, it's still very translucent. And I want some of that wax to drip down on the skull itself. It won't look as good if I paint it, so I'm going to use some white glue sticks. I only had little bitty ones, so I get out my little glue gun, do the same process on the skull, and just integrate that into the wax that's already there. I'll touch up any of the hot glue that is not covered by the spray paint by spraying some paint onto a plate, and then using a brush, I'm just going to brush over that. Here you can see I'm dry brushing a little bit of silver paint just to increase the contrast in the wrought iron piece. Now to make the candles look even cooler and to pop out more, I'm using a wash of burnt sienna, and I'm painting that on really wet and then rubbing it off. It gets into the gaps and just adds some extra spookiness to the candles. For the candles themselves, I've got these plastic tea light candles that I got from the dollar store a while back. Now I've never turned them on, so I found out that the longer ones in the middle are not the right color light, so we'll have to fix that later. Let's finish this whole project off with some really creepy spider webs. I'm going to use hot glue and my air compressor with a blow tip on it, and I'm just going to blow the hot glue as it drips out of my gun, and it strings out, makes really creepy cobwebs all over it. Let's take a good look at the final product. It was really fun being challenged with using just stuff that I had laying around and trying to come up with a design that would work with all of it. If you liked this video and you think other people might like it too, please be sure to leave a thumbs up, because that lets YouTube know they should tell other people about it. And if you want to catch other videos like this in the future, make sure to subscribe. Until then though, don't be bored, be creative.